Today we are taking a deep dive into the strategic mind of, well, a real American industrial heavyweight, Ford.
Mm-hmm.
We've been looking at some incredibly candid remarks from CEO Jim Farley. He gave this very clear-eyed, maybe even alarming assessment of the auto industry right now.
That's right. And these sources, they really lay bare the kind of internal pressures and, frankly, the external threats facing a company like Ford.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to take these remarks and try to understand why a major legacy automaker is undertaking what Farley himself calls a radical strategic shift.
Radical. That's a strong word.
It is, and it's not just, switching from gas to electric. It feels more like a full restructuring, maybe even of the whole American industrial base.
Okay, so if you follow the auto industry, you know the stakes are high. But what our deep dive shows are these three interconnected crises that Ford seems to be facing all at once.
Right. Three major crossroads, as you put it.
First, there's the American industrial workforce maybe being neglected. Second, the financial reality, the really tough numbers behind the EV price war.
Yeah. Crippling is a good word for it.
And third, this unprecedented threat from foreign competition, vertically integrated competition.
And what's crucial, I think, is how these challenges sort of feed off each other, right?
How so?
Well, the costs tied to that legacy structure, union contracts, old factories, they get way harder to handle when you're actually losing money on the new products, the EVs.
Right.
And it becomes almost impossible to justify when some global rival can build essentially the same thing for like half the price.
So we really need to unpack this to see what the future of driving looks like for you listening and for the U.S. economy overall.
Exactly.
Okay, let's jump into that first pillar. And honestly, this was the most human, maybe the most surprising thing Farley shared. He called it his personal wake-up call.
Yeah, and it wasn't about battery tech or AI or anything like that.
No, it was about the people.
Right.
The ones actually building the cars.
This brings us straight to that workforce pressure point. Farley talked about this encounter he had with young factory employees, Gen Z workers.
And what did they say?
They admitted they were juggling 3 different jobs. 3, just to make ends meet, just basic living expenses near where Ford operates.
Wow. I mean, just stop and process that for a second.
Yeah.
We count on these factory workers, electricians, skilled trades, that they're supposed to be the foundation, right? Stable, well-paid jobs.
That's the idea.
But the cost of living has just shot up so much that even these, quote, good jobs aren't enough. They're stretched incredibly thin.
And it immediately makes you wonder about, well, structural neglect. Farley himself warns the U.S. might be risking this essential workforce, right when everyone's worried about AI taking white-collar jobs. He argues these roles need more than just pay bumps. They need a real cultural shift, more respect, more investment.
Because these are good careers, right? Stability, upward mobility.
Exactly, but they get overlooked. In schools, career advice, everyone's pushed towards tech or office jobs.
And if you connect that workforce pressure back to the cost of the car itself, you see the problem Ford has right now.
Yeah, absolutely. If labor costs get too high or if you can't find the workers, those costs eventually hit the sticker price.
Makes it harder to compete, especially against companies without those same pressures.
Which brings us right to the second point. The financial fitness test Ford is, well, currently failing pretty badly.
Yeah, let's pivot to the money side of EVs, because the numbers here are, as you said, crippling.
Ford's dedicated EV division, they call it 4D, disclosed a massive $1.1 billion loss in just one quarter.
$1 billion, just burn through.
It's a huge amount of cash.
Okay, so unpack that $1 billion. What does it actually mean per car? Because that's where it gets really stark.
It translates to, get this, nearly $50,000 lost on every single electric vehicle they sold in that period.
$50,000 lost per car. How is that even possible? How do they close that gap?
Well, the reason it's so big, it ties back to being a legacy company. They're fighting on 2 fronts.
Okay.
One, the huge cost of developing brand new EV tech, batteries, software, electronics. It's all expensive.
Right.
And 2, they're dragging the weight of their existing structure. Decades of tooling for gas engines, complex union deals tied to old ways of doing things, a huge supply chain that's slow to change.
That's just trying to sprint forward while carrying this huge backpack full of, well, history.
Exactly. Innovating while carrying the weight of the past.
So it's not just an EV price war, it's almost a legacy cost war.
That's a good way to put it.
And that structural pain, that's got to be what pushed Ford to announce this radical counter strategy you mentioned.
Definitely. They're aiming for a clean sheet redesign, a whole new approach.
Centered on a new universal EV platform, right? slated for 2027.
Yeah, 2027 is the target. But maybe even more interesting is how they're doing it, the team.
Tell me about that.
It's totally independent, high risk, high reward. They set up what's basically a skunk works operation.
Like the old Lockheed term, secret projects.
Kind of like that. A small, isolated team given total freedom to just break the rules, challenge everything, fail fast if needed.
And how small is small?
Get this. 17 engineers working quietly out in Long Beach, California.
17 engineers to solve a multi-billion-dollar, $50,000 per car problem.
Sounds crazy, doesn't it?
It sounds ambitious. Is it realistic? Can they really undo decades of complexity?
Well, the thinking is they have to. Because
Mhm.
complexity is the real enemy here. Their mission is crystal clear. Strip away everything. Every layer of complexity baked into car making over the last, 70 years?
Simplify everything. Chassis, materials, how it's built.
Right. If they nail that, they can fundamentally change the cost.
And the goal, the prize at the end, is that affordable EV.
The magic number seems to be around $30,000. Farley admits nobody's really proven they can build a profitable, high-volume EV at that price yet.
So this clean sheet platform isn't just a plan. It's maybe their only path to survival in the mass market.
It feels like an existential necessity based on his comments. And he also points to the commercial market.
The trucks and vans.
Exactly. He says commercial drivers adapt fastest because they are, his word, brutal about ownership costs.
Meaning fuel, insurance, repairs.
All of it.
Yeah.
Especially repairability. If Ford can win there with a cheap-to-run, simple platform, that gives them the scale.
The volume they need to make that $30,000 consumer car viable.
That seems to be the strategy.
And then there's the whole software puzzle, too. Competing with Apple, Google, inside the car.
Right. It's a tricky balance. They confirmed they'll keep integrating things like Apple CarPlay because, well, people want it.
Yeah, you have to.
But at the same time, they're investing heavily in their own software because the future profit isn't just selling the car, it's the digital services, the subscriptions inside the car.
Okay, so this intense focus on cost, on efficiency, on simplification, it's all driven by internal pressures, but also
by that third crossroad, the huge external threat.
right.
And if we connect all this back to the bigger picture, you see why maybe even 2027 feels urgent, maybe too late.
Because of the competition.
Specifically, the Chinese manufacturers.
Yeah.
Farley used a really strong phrase. We've never seen a competitor like this before. He pointed right at BYD as the prime example.
Okay, so why? Why are they unprecedented? What's the secret sauce?
It really boils down to one core thing. Total vertical integration. Meaning they build almost everything critical themselves. U.S. automakers, Ford included, rely on huge networks of outside suppliers. Seats, chips, you name it.
But BYD?
BYD builds its own batteries, its own internal chips, and crucially, things like silicon carbide inverters, all in-house.
Okay, silicon carbide inverters. Why are those so important?
They're key for EV efficiency. They manage the power flow way better, less energy loss, less heat compared to traditional silicon.
And BYD makes them themselves.
Yes, so they control the cost, the quality, and maybe most importantly, the speed of innovation, the speed of production. They aren't waiting for a supplier halfway around the world.
That's a massive advantage.
Huge. Farley compared it to the Japanese automakers back in the 80s, the quality and cost challenge then.
I remember that.
But he warns this is multiplied. More dangerous. Why? Because BYD and others, they potentially have the scale, the production capacity, and that cost structure to serve the entire North American market, almost overnight if they could.
Wow.
The whole market.
That's the scale threat.
And this is already hitting the bottom line.
Apparently so. Farley complained openly that U.S. tariffs on imported parts meant to protect domestic jobs actually hurt Ford's margins significantly. Makes it even harder to compete globally on price.
So he's asking policymakers for a level playing field.
He is, but the core issue might be that integration advantage, which tariffs don't really fix.
And to really grasp this, Farley shared something pretty striking.
Oh, yeah.
He personally drives a Chinese EV.
He drives a competitor's car.
Daily. To understand them. To analyze the competition firsthand, see the scale, the cost efficiencies right there on his commute.
Wow. That tells you how serious he thinks this is. It's existential.
And the threat isn't always obvious, is it? It's not just BYD badges everywhere. No, our sources suggest they're expanding globally, kind of by stealth sometimes. selling EVs under established brands people already know, like Mazda or Nissan in some markets.
So this low-cost, high-scale competition just reinforces why that $30,000 platform isn't just a nice goal for Ford.
It's the absolute bare minimum they need just to stay in the game globally.
Okay, one last piece. Innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Ford's back in Formula One racing with Red Bull.
Yeah.
Is that just marketing? Ego.
Farley insists it's not. He says it's purely for tech transfer.
Tech transfer. From F1.
Yeah, F1 is like this super fast lab for efficiency, for aerodynamics, lightweight materials, cutting-edge stuff.
So they want to grab those advances.
And adapt them immediately
Yeah.
to their own consumer cars, their own manufacturing,
Got it.
specifically to help cut cost and complexity on that universal EV platform we talked about. It's all connected.
Makes sense. So pulling these threads together.
You see Ford grappling with three massive, interconnected, really existential threats.
Right. One, the domestic workforce issue, neglect, high costs.
Two, the huge financial losses, the bleeding from the current EV model, burdened by legacy costs.
And three, this incredibly potent global competition, especially from China, that's vertically integrated and threatens their whole business model.
Yeah, rivals that could undermine the core viability of legacy companies like Ford.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for you, the listener?
Well, Ford's making this radical bet, this commitment to smaller, cheaper, simpler EVs.
Driven by that tiny 17-person skunkworks team.
It's their attempt to basically reinvent their industrial base before the clock runs out.
And Farley's open about the risk. He acknowledged that traditional American automakers could go bankrupt if they don't nail this transition, if they can't pass this financial and strategic fitness test.
It's not just about adopting new tech anymore.
No, it's about shedding maybe a century of built-up complexity and cost. It's a race against scale.
Indeed, a huge race.
So here's something to think about. If the CEO of a major American automaker, like Ford, is driving a competitor's Chinese EV and warning about potential bankruptcy because of their scale and vertical integration, what does that really mean for the future? What level of vertical integration controlling everything from raw materials all the way to the software and the dashboard will be required for any major American manufacturer to actually survive the next decade?
Will they need to control that whole chain? Or risk it's being overtaken by rivals who already do?
Something for you to mull over, or maybe explore on your own.